Okay. I got you. Everyone keeps asking me what books I like to read, what books have taught me, kind of the skills that have helped me live the life that I'm living today, where I get to do whatever I want, financial flexibility, cool, amazing job, blah, 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 blah. You want to know the information that will help you get ahead in life, and you want to know some solid books. So I'm going to give you more book recommendations over time, one by one, and we're going to start with perhaps the most useful book maybe I've ever read in my entire life. It's definitely one of the top 3, and that is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So as follows is going to be my Rich Dad, Poor Dad book summary for the day. And this book, it's hard to describe how much of a profound impact this book has had on my life. Like I said, this is the book that has led to me, doing things, creating assets like the books that I currently have published and that have helped me make a living and all these different things. So I'll dive into it. But before we get to that, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notification bell, because I'm going to be making a lot more videos like this. So if you want to stay in touch with me and figure out what I'm reading, learning, and doing consistently, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and you hit that bell tapped so you get videos right away. Okay, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is probably a book that a lot of people have read already, and even if you read it already, it's just a good primer to kind of watch this video. This is a book, I've probably read this book 5 or 6 times at this point because it's so valuable. The insights really, I read it in college, and I remember the night that I read it, I was in the library like way late at night. I think the library closed at like 10 p.m. I was reading this book. And then after I was reading in the library, I took it home. I was up to like 3 in the morning because the book was continually blowing my mind. So here's the premise of the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book is about Robert Kiyosaki, and it is about his 2 dads that had 2 different professions. His real dad, his biological father was a teacher, kind of a salaried union worker who kind of had the mindset of an employee. He was a very, very intelligent, high IQ person, but when it came to kind of building wealth and managing his money, he wasn't very good at it. And then Mr. Kiyosaki's other dad, his rich dad, was father of his friend who was an entrepreneur. So he wasn't, quote unquote, the most book smart person in the world, but he knew how to build wealth, and he kind of took Mr. Kiyosaki under his wing, apprenticed underneath him, etc., and kind of taught him valuable lessons that led to Robert creating his own products, real estate portfolio, different things like that. So there's a lot of debate on Robert Kiyosaki and the business practices he runs, but let's take all that aside and just focus on the lessons from the book that are valuable regardless of the man. One of the most valuable things that I learned from this book is the idea of creating assets. And this is something that I talk about on this channel over and over and over. And he basically talks about assets as something that puts money into your pocket. And he's always talking about cash flow. He wants you to have money going into your pocket. This is why he prefers investments like real estate. When you buy real estate, someone's paying rent and you're the landlord. You're getting cash. Cash is going into your pocket. He talks about things like books, intellectual property. You write the book once and you continue to get paid over and over again. You have cash coming in. And he says you want to increase your cash flow. And then once you have cash flow coming in from assets and investments, that's what you use to go buy your luxury items. But what most people do is they don't produce cash flow. They focus only on making an income, and then they spend all of their income on liabilities. So what are liabilities? Liabilities are things like your car note, consumer credit card debt, anything that is taking money out of your pocket, expenses, debt, those are liabilities. So most people get the equation backwards. They spend all their money on liabilities. They don't have any really consistent cash flow aside from their income, and this basically leads to the middle class nightmare, I like to call it. I wrote an article about this, how most people, very intelligent people, they get the money equation backwards, and once they get into a bunch of debt and don't have additional cash flow besides their job, they basically become indentured servants to their own debt. And that's pretty much the gist of how people end up. And, another controversial take that Mr. Kiyosaki has in his book is that owning a home is not an asset. Now, I know the peanut gallery is going to come out. Home ownership is a very, very, very emotional topic. But what he says, he puts it under the category of a liability because, yes, you are building equity, but you're not getting cash flow when you have that mortgage, when you own a single family home, and you're paying all that money to the bank, you're paying the interest, you're paying the property taxes. It's an illiquid investment. You can only get cash out of it unless you sell the property and get that equity, or else if you take another loan, putting yourself under more interest, etc. So he looks at a house as a liability for the most part because it is usually taking money out of your pocket. I'm not going to get into a big debate about housing, but there's the Robert Shiller report, Economist, where he talks about the real value, in terms of rising inflation of homes is basically break even, and then we calculate all the expenses, etc. But the main point is to think about the type of investments that bring cash flow. So one thing he mentions is if you want to buy a house, first buy a rental where you are getting cash flow from your tenants, then go use that money to buy your own house, right? So a lot of people who they own a lot of real estate, for example, my uncle, he owns about 14 homes. He has cash flow from those homes, then he uses it to pay his own mortgage. I've known people who they get into a duplex, they rent out the other house, the other side of the duplex, that kind of pays part of the rent, pays off the mortgage. So it's that type of thinking. And let's not get lost in the semantics of assets versus liabilities. Just think about how to get cash coming in and keep it from coming out. Other things he mentions in the book is the idea of the cash flow quadrant, different ways that people make money. So there's being an employee, which is where most people find themselves. There is being an investor. So when you are an investor, that's when you're buying, you're buying stocks, you're buying bonds, you're buying investments, you're venture backing companies, things like that. And then there is self-employed, which he actually talks about, being a trap for a lot of people. So a lot of people think that they are business owners when they really are self-employed. And the distinction he makes between business owners and people who are self-employed is that when you are self-employed, you have no mechanism of removing yourself from the business. So essentially, you still have a job. You just work for yourself. And the reason why he creates that distinction and why he considers business ownership a different category is because when you own a quote unquote business, which he says is the best way to make your money, by the way, when you own a business, you have assets that bring in cash flow and you have systems working for you that allow you to make money without your continued participation, right? So kind of the prototypical example is there's a guy who owns a plumbing company, but he's out there doing all the jobs himself. Now, it doesn't matter what industry he's in, it's just you could translate that into a business. So maybe you start off as kind of self-employed and you own the plumbing company and you're doing a lot of the jobs, but eventually you could turn it into a business where you hire people to do the actual jobs and then you remove yourself from the situation and those people do the actual work. You own the company, you set up kind of the infrastructure, you get the initial clients coming in, but then you have a team who does that work for you so you can step away from that business, and so it really becomes passive income. He talks about owning intellectual property and kind of having things that scale. So like myself, I wouldn't consider myself some full-blown business owner, but I do have products that make me money without my additional participation. I have 3 books. Those books sell all around the world, all different countries, and those books continue to sell over and over and over without too much of my participation. I have some marketing funnels set up, things like that, but I can take that a little bit hands off. I have online courses, products, programs, things like that. I've worked with virtual assistants and contractors before to help me set those things up. So that's the great thing about having a business and really learning how to scale to where it's just hard making money when you don't have either people or kind of code and leverage working for you. So having people work for you, obviously they do the services for you. And then as Naval Ravikant says, if you don't want to have people working for you, you can also have kind of code and media working for you. So in my case, I put my videos out onto YouTube, and yes, I promote my videos, but sometimes the algorithm just picks them up and then promotes the videos, and then people buy products when they go look in the description, things like that. I have a website, multiple websites where I do things like search engine optimization to get them ranking well on Google. So things kind of pop up, and I have traffic coming in from all different places. I have sales coming in from all different channels and income streams, and I do still work, but it's not like I have to slave over every single penny and really trade time for money, which is basically the number one thing he talks about avoiding. Is you never want to be, not never, but you don't want to be constantly trading your time for money, because you only can work so many hours in a day. When you're working for someone else, particularly, they control how much money you make. It's not like if you make $30 an hour, you work super hard 1 hour, that you get more money. It's like, nope, you get that same amount no matter how you work. So you want to move away from the employment and self-employed part of the quadrant, and you want to move into the business and then move into the investor part after that. So really, you focus on building the business first. You get a lot of income and cash flow coming in. Then you can use that money, buy stocks, buy bonds, buy gold, buy crypto, buy real estate. So this year, I finally had enough excess cash flow from my business to where I was like, okay, I shouldn't have all this money sitting in a bank account. So I started investing in basic index funds. I'm looking into owning my first property. Probably will have one before the year is over. So when you do that, you continue to get compound gains. And that's what I continue to talk about on this channel. You want to get compound gains that build over and over and over again. You want to create leverage, and you kind of want to create businesses, systems, media, investments that kind of do additional work without your additional effort. And there's a lot of different insights I can talk about, but the last one I'll probably leave you with is my favorite concept from the book, and it's the concept of working to learn and not working for money. So this is a problem I see a lot of people run into when they start trying to get into the world of business, online money, marketing, things like that. They're so trained to think like an employee to where they expect to get an immediate reward for their effort. So there's a really good example in the book where, Rich Dad has Robert and his friend working for him for free. And he tells his poor dad about this. And his poor dad, who's like a union worker, was like, no, you must be paid for your work, blah, blah, blah. So Robert goes and storms into Rich Dad's office and demands to be paid for the work. And Rich Dad just says, no, if you don't like it, you can quit. So what was the lesson there? The lesson there was to earn your stripes up front. Get the skills first. Quit worrying about the money. The money will come later. If you become really good at kind of a rare and valuable skill, you'll make money on the back end. And what do a lot of rare and valuable skills have in common? Things like setting up an online business, things like putting any sort of business together, is really, you're going to have to do a lot of work up front. I've told this story before about a financial services kind of franchise owner who came and talked at my college one time, and he talked about the fact that in the beginning, he was working 70, 80 hours a week, and when you equated the money he was making kind of from his commissions, he was making less than a McDonald's employee. But he front-loaded the work, learned the skills, learned how to build a client base, learned how to build a team underneath him, and then on the back end, years later, he became a millionaire. And this is how the process works. It is, delayed gratification on steroids. You can make, I'm telling you, I make a lot more money for the same level of effort that I used to put in years ago. Because I woke up every morning at 5 a.m. and practice writing and practice putting together businesses and practice monetizing and practice products day in and day out for years without making a dime. Now at 30 years old, I pretty much have full control over my life. Many days I will work 2 to 3, 4 hours and say, you know what? I don't feel like working today. I'm going to go on the golf course. I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to go hang out with my friends, go for lunch, go for drinks. At age 30, because I decided to sacrifice that time up front and build assets, because I would first worked to learn and get the skills first, and I knew the money would come later. Okay, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that is a book that you should definitely check out if you haven't already. That's kind of my short synopsis of it. There's a lot of good nuggets in that book, so make sure to go check that out. And also, since you're already going to be on Amazon, going to be on the page already, you better check out Real Help. How are you going to get Robert Kiyosaki and not get the person who recommended you? You know, this is going to be wisdom, you know, kind of his wisdom baked in there with all of the wisdom I've learned from so many other books. So if you're really curious, if you want to download all the knowledge of everything I read, you can basically get it in one place. So go check out the book Real Help. That'll be in the description below. Also, there's going to be a link to a free checklist that is going to teach you how to build said profitable skills that you can use to kind of live that rich dad life. So go in the description below, put your email, and you'll get that profitable strengths checklist delivered right to your inbox. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the little notification bell so that you can get brand new videos the moment they come out. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment below about other books you would like me to review or other video ideas that you have. There'll be some videos popping up in front of your face right now. Make sure to check those out, and I will see you on the next video.